My topic is apartheid. My general purpose is to inform. My specific purpose is to inform my audience about the apartheid law in South Africa and how this law has changed the country. Do you want to play a game? It's called Simon Says. I'm pretty sure everybody knows how to play this game, so let's start. Simon says, put your hands up. Now put them down.
Grace.
Oh no, Simon didn't say put your hands down. You lose. Let's try again. Simon says cross the street. Good. Simon says go down the street to use the restroom. Yet there's a restroom 5 feet away. Simon says if you do not do what Simon says, then there will be consequences. Simon says if your skin is white, we cannot be friends. Simon says if my skin is white but is not black, then I cannot be your mother. The apartheid law was controlled by people who were like Simon. South Africans were subjected to cruel and unusual punishments based on the color of their skin. Apartheid in South Africa caused families to separate, millions to lose their birthright citizenship, and caused mass incarceration. After intense research, I gained knowledge of the apartheid law and what it meant for South Africans who lived there like Nelson Mandela. Hopefully, after listening to this information I give to you, you will be able to obtain the same knowledge. The apartheid law in South Africa The apartheid law is what South Africa's history is based on. Families were torn apart, millions had their rights stripped from them and their citizenship to South Africa. There were protests against this new law that caused mass incarceration of citizens. First, what does apartheid mean? In the article, The Harsh Reality of Life Under Apartheid in South Africa, Aaron Blakemore defines apartheid using the African's definition meaning apartness. Essentially, the apartheid law separated white people from all other races. This law started in 1948 after the National Power won power over the office. This party instituted white supremacy practices in South Africa. Apartheid upheld segregationist policies against the non-white citizens of South Africa. According to apartheid, the controversial 1913 Land Act passed 3 years after South Africa got its independence. This marked the beginning of territorial segregation, making the black Africans live in reserves. This made it illegal for them to work as sharecroppers. The main goal was not just to separate the white minority from the non-white majority, but they wanted to separate the non-whites also. They wanted to divide the black South Africans within tribal lines to decrease political power within them. Not only were they dividing color, but also families. By the 1950s, the South African government banned marriages between whites and people who weren't white. This also prohibited lustful relations between blacks and whites. And the Prohibition of Mixed Marriages Act by Angela Tomshell, the Prohibition of Mixed Marriages Act made it a criminal offense for a marriage officer to perform an interracial marriage ceremony. If a white woman and a black man had a child before apartheid, then the woman would have to be removed from the home and forced to live with other white people. Because of this law, many blacks and colored citizens lost citizenship. Hendrik Verwoerd, also known as the father of apartheid, referred to this as a separate development. According to apartheid, the Promotion of Bantu Self-Government Act of 1959 created 10 Bantu homelands known as the Bantustans. This is where they put all the black citizens of South Africa. This was to keep blacks separated so that the government could claim that there was no black majority and eliminate the risk of having blacks unified into one nationalist government. Every black South African was a citizen of Bantustan. This was supposed to give them complete political rights, but instead it removed them from the entire nation's political body. Between 1961 and 1994, more than 3.5 million people were forced from their homes and placed in Bantustans. For anyone who opposed apartheid, they suffered consequences. Many people opposed apartheid, and for good reasons. According to the end of apartheid, riots, boycotts, and protests by black Africans against white rule had occurred since the inception of independent white rule in 1910. The African National Congress, or ANC, and the Pan-Africanist Congress, PAC, were outlawed in 1960, and many of their most prominent leaders were arrested. The most famous leader of the ANC was Nelson Mandela. He had become the symbol of the anti-apartheid struggle. While he and other permanent leaders were incarcerated, other leaders of the anti-apartheid struggle started to reach out to other independent countries for help. Everyone internationally started paying attention to the brutality of this issue when the South African police opened fire on unarmed black protesters in 1960. This event killed 69 people and wounded 186 others. Nelson Mandela was released from prison in 1990 after serving 27 years. Prime Minister de Klerk agreed to democratic elections. Nelson Mandela became the first black president of South Africa in 1994. Apartheid was now over. Now I would like to conclude these thoughts. The apartheid law in South Africa was extremely unfair and unjust. The apartheid law did more harm than good to South Africa, and I pray that they find their closure. Apartheid caused families to be broken apart. Millions of black citizens were forced out of their homes and into new citizenship, which caused them to lose their South African citizenship and identity. Anyone who opposed apartheid was imprisoned and subjected to cruel and unusual punishment. Simon says, "Do unto others what you would have them do unto you." Simon says,